I gotta tell you a story about a couple of guys. We got a show about bikes in a garage. Don't ask me why. Okay, ask me why. We're the Handsome Asians Motorcycle Club.
Got Paulo and Lou, Frank and Eric too. We got tons to do, and we're gonna share it all with you. I'm taking a shit.
We're the Handsome Asians Motorcycle Club.
Who was that girl in that last bit?
Aurora?
Is that her name?
Yeah, Aurora. We used to work together a long time ago back at Villains on Haight Street, back in like the late 90s. Yeah, she's a really cool girl. She's actually the daughter of a pretty popular, or actually a famous bike builder, Spade George.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
the Harley guy.
Yeah, you've heard of him.
You know what we should do? There's a lot of like films about bike builders, but nobody ever talks to their families.
Yeah,
We should see what it was like for her growing up in that environment.
I think of it as like a painting. When I think of my dad's work, I think of him being more like an artist with the bikes than just like a mechanic. My father was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. He was born and raised in Park Slope. He left probably when he was about 20 or 19 to come here to San Francisco. He opened up his Harley shop probably around 24 or 23.
I pretty much started this shop, it would have been in San Francisco, roughly about 76. And since then, it's been in Daly City for 5 years. Then it was in San Francisco for 24 years. And now here in Redwood City for 9 years.
He just wanted to leave. He wanted to start new. He wanted to have a new slate to his life and create a whole new life for himself and leave, you know, his history behind.
Just street fights, basically, or bar fights, you know, I mean, that happens no matter what. It's just a little more. You always get somebody who's got to push it on you because you got a patch, you're a patch holder. They just got to see how bad you are, you know, and sometimes you're not as bad as you think you are, so you don't really come out on top, but then other times you do. But it was one of those things that you just took for granted when you were out and about on the bike.
He came out here and worked at Doggy Diner by the zoo and caught the kitchen on fire. I'll never forget that, and he got fired.
No, I did not almost. The restaurant almost burned down, but it didn't have anything to do with me. That was an equipment failure.
But then he opened his shop like a couple years later. And you know, he built his own business. He built his own life, you know, and it kind of running from stuff, but building stuff. You know, he left New York. New York's a great place, you know, but he knew he had to venture out to another place to start his art form, to start like his own like journey.
They had this thing with a bus. They used to call it the Gray Wabbit. And what it did was for $50, it would take people to California. They would take people there, drop them off, and then in San Francisco. Then they would come back with the people that they dropped off previously. So people were constantly going back and forth, and they'd come back with these stories. Oh, San Francisco, oh, you gotta see this place. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, man, so I was really intrigued. we just stayed, and it's some wild times. It was wild. See, San Francisco back in the day was just wild.
I'd say the pivotal point of me realizing that my dad was different from other dads was when he would take me to school, in elementary school, and he'd take me on the bike. And that is something I remember to this day, because as a little girl, it was really hard for me to be like everybody else's parents are taking, you know, their kid in a car. And I would be so embarrassed because my dad would take me to Alvarado on a bike, and part of me was like, drop me off a block down. When I hit middle school, when he was taking me to school on the bike, and we would go up the ramp on Hoover, and the kids would be like, thumbs up, like, that's your dad. And for the first time in middle school, it actually hit me where I was like, this is really cool.
I used to take her to school on the bike. They got mad at me because I used to ride up in the schoolyard with the chopper car, just pull in. Like I said, I owned San Francisco.
Did you have an influence on Aurora becoming an artist?
You know, not on purpose. I can say not on purpose. She is who she is. When we lived at the shop, she actually enjoyed that. That was a part of growing up that in and of itself was very unique. You know, when Aurora was young, and I constantly tell her, yeah, that's very cool. I hang her pictures up. It made her feel like a person, like she is wanted in this world. There's nothing worse you can do to a kid than to just not pay him any attention, because then they start looking for that attention in other places.
It's been later in my years when I started, you know, diving into my art, and even, you know, to this day, that him just as him living his life, doing what he's done for all these years is inspiring me to push my creativity. So, you know, because I grew up with someone that was doing his own thing, out of the norm, out of the box. You know, it didn't happen when I was younger, but it's happening now as I'm trying to sort of figure out my dream and my lifestyle as a mother and as an artist. He's inspired me to move creatively and not give up on that. I started with sort of selling jewelry online, and then if you sell anything online, you have to have good pictures. And so I got a good camera and I got a model, and then those pictures, people were like, wow, that's a great shot. And I was like, maybe I can work with this. So that became a progression of like photographing, you know, females, or not just my jewelry, but scenery, you know, mountains, landscapes. And then from that, it just took off. And so now it's more like I've always painted, like not always, but I painted just for fun before trying to sell my work online. And so now it's gotten to a point where I feel really, really comfortable with what I'm doing, and I want to sort of mold how I've been working with my photography with my painting. When it comes to my painting, I mean, I'll go like a month without painting, and all of a sudden I'm driven. And I'll just, I mean, the process is the process. I'm just playing music, a glass of wine, and I just sort of let whatever like emotions or thoughts I can't necessarily process within myself out onto like the canvas. So I think it's more like a shedding of emotions and a shedding of experience that ends up on the canvas. And it's lots of layers because there's so many things I can't really tap into within myself. And so when I paint, it just comes out like that. It's just layers and layers and layers and expression. And it's almost like when you get to the top of a mountain, you want to scream because you're going through things or experiencing life. The canvas is sort of like my way of letting it all out.
I hope it works for her because it's a hard life. Some of the best artists I know, you never heard of. When you're an artist and you want to stay an artist, you got to be able to handle criticism.
I'm proud of him. At the end of the day, I'm proud that he's my father. I think right now, at certain times, he is an artist and he's doing what he loves, but he wants more to see from what he's been sacrificing for all these days. So on the outside perspective, everybody is like, you're an inspiration. But I feel like because of, you know, the sacrifice that he's taken and like what he feels like he wants to have at this moment, he can't always pertain it and see the glory in it or like see the pride in it, because I see that because of his journey and he's still in it, he can't exactly process it.
When people rode choppers, it was a defiance thing. It was, nobody wanted mirrors, nobody wanted to be in a conventional lifestyle. That's what a chopper represented. Today it's a little different, but that's what the image was. When you saw a chopper, you knew that was a bad motherfucker on that bike. He didn't want to take no shit from nobody, and that was that. And that's the way it was. Now, it is still that way in certain circles, but it's just different. Times have changed, you know what I'm saying? So when I see choppers now, most of the time, the people are approachable. Back in the day, they weren't so approachable. You had to know them or get to know them, and otherwise you really didn't want to know them. You know what I'm saying? Then after you got to know them, then you might have wished you hadn't have known them. It just depends on the people. I see a whole different culture now with choppers, and it's a lot more tame. A lot of times I meet these people and I see them, and they say, I know they have a bike, but they got their leather jackets and everything. I go, how come you ain't here on your bike? He says, well, because I'm drinking. I know this is going to sound bad, but I go, damn, man, the best times I've ever had was when I was drinking, riding drunk. All right, I'll be the first one to admit that. But it's drinking and driving, to me, it's not a good thing, but I don't see nothing wrong with it as long as you don't run into nothing. What the fuck? I mean, right?
How long have you known Aurora? What was that, like when you were working at Villains? What year was that?
Yeah, that was at Villains, God, probably, I want to say the late 90s, early 2000s.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
I know Lewis since we were kids. I mean, we go way back, and obviously my brother's been around during that time. But when did we meet? I know we started hanging out about 8 years ago. What, has it been 9 years now since we did the first film?
Yeah.
But I met Lewis through work. And then all of us met, what was it, is it church group?
Yeah, like charity event, helping the homeless or something like that. I forgot exactly.
I'm pretty sure it was that.
We're the Handsome Asians Motorcycle Club. We're the Handsome Asians Motorcycle Club.
If you like what you saw, click here to subscribe or leave a comment below. And make sure to check out our movie, which recently won the People's Choice Award at the Motorcycle Film Festival in Brooklyn, New York, at vimeo.com/ondemand/dirtbag2.